Over the past few days, Fallout 76 has been the center of quite a bit of controversy. This kind of all getting kicked off with the announcement of their subscription service, Fallout First. Just the fact that a subscription service in general was being added and certain features were locked behind it was enough to piss a lot of people off. But then, those who actually purchased it quickly found that there were quite a few issues with the service, and actually one major one, with deleting your items. So in this video, I want to talk about that, actually some other issues that happened with this recent update that aren't getting a ton of attention but also are very relevant here. And then finally, we actually have some responses from Bethesda. Some of their official outlets have noted some of these issues, but also just a more general, hey, maybe we should have done things differently with that. If you guys enjoy the content, you can leave a like or subscribe, but otherwise, first and foremost, let's take a look at and talk about this Scrapbox issue. When you purchase Fallout First, one of the things you will get is this thing known as a Scrapbox. It's a little storage container that you could put all of your junk items into, and it has unlimited storage. That's extremely notable and very valuable because in the regular stash box, the only other storage container, it only has 800 pounds of storage. So even though it's junk exclusive, that Scrapbox is super good and locked behind a paywall. You could hoard junk all day long, something typically you kind of had to balance out. But even further, one of the other reasons this rubbed a lot of people the wrong way was you could actually look back and find quotes from Bethesda where they said they didn't want to increase the stash limit because it would have a negative impact on performance. But then now suddenly it's okay when you have to pay for the item. Although again, this one is only junk, a stash is all items. Well, either way, a lot of people quickly started to realize that, this Scrapbox is actually deleting everything in it. With reports like this, you have to be wary. People in the past have actually just made stuff up around Fallout 76. For a good few weeks, there was this reported exploit in the game that literally never existed. Someone just made it up and it got a ton of coverage, and a vast majority of the user base believed it. So I was a little bit wary at first, but as reports continued to flow in, it became clear, no, this is likely a real problem. And even further, since then, we've actually seen video evidence and proof of somebody recreating this issue, putting all their junk in the Scrapbox, and while loading a world, just quitting to the dashboard, and suddenly it's all gone. Bethesda actually gave a response to this. They initially said that it was just a visual error, so that you just couldn't see all of the junk in your Scrapbox, but it actually still was in there. But then later, they actually started to realize that no, in fact, there actually might be some real losses here. That some people are probably getting the visual one, some people are actually getting the deleted items one, and you quickly saw a lot of reports of people paying a monthly service to actually have all of their items deleted. And even though it's just junk, if you're not familiar, some junk can actually be kind of rare or expensive. And of course, those large quantity of items could just be months of work gone in an instant. So it's some pretty bad news. Although Bethesda is actually working to fix this. Earlier today, they took the Fallout 76 servers down for maintenance. They applied a hotfix that would prevent the Scrapbox from deleting your items. And so far, it seems like it is a success. There's been no further reports of item deletions. Although to be clear, this is still tentative. It's only been a couple of hours. It also seems like there was multiple methods by which these item deletions were happening, so we don't know if all of them are fixed per se, but maybe just the popular ones. Although, outside of just fixing the problem, Bethesda also does mention that for those people who actually have lost items, they are looking into ways we can restore scrap to affected characters, and we'll let you know as soon as we have more details to share on that. So that's definitely good, although not perfect. Obviously, if everybody gets everything restored, great. But of course, there is the potential that not everybody gets everything restored and people actually lost content and thus playtime as a result of this. But on the topic of junk and junk-related utility items in Fallout 76, this actually isn't the only one. Some of you guys might remember a month and a half ago or so now when Bethesda released their Scrap Collectron. This was released on the same day as the $7 fridge. The $7 fridge really took the spotlight because, I mean, that's just ridiculous. A $7 fridge in a video game. But the Collectron also came with it. It was basically this little robot you could place down in your camp. It would go wander about, collect junk that you could use, and it would do so just at a progressive rate, giving you some junk that you may have just lost in your Scrapbox. But this too actually has some problems with it. Just recently I talked about an issue where if you log off, it doesn't despawn the Collectron, so you'll just find these robots wandering around the world because they have nowhere to return to, which is kind of funny and harmless, but not so harmless. It seems like, according to data miners of Fallout 76, that this actually was stealth nerfed in the past update. We're now, in effect, using the Collectron station, all of the items it finds are a lot rarer. So basically the way these things work are you could actually set it to collect scrap or junk. But on release, people quickly start to realize while it's going, scrap actually just gives you a lot more. The robot will walk around the area and at random have a chance at finding a common, uncommon, rare, or very rare piece of scrap. In the recent update, the values for the scrap component of this were drastically decreased, meaning that now it'll just find less of all of these categories. So for all of them except rare, you're seeing 60% less likelihood to find that scrap, while the rare one's actually only a 10% decrease. So put simply, 1 month after it was sold to players, the Scrapbot was changed to just be worse, and nobody said anything about it. It's not in the patch notes, it hasn't really been officially stated by Bethesda up until this point. Maybe this was somehow an error or something they didn't intend to do, but there's nothing really indicating that, and unless some kind of old build got implemented, it's not like you could accidentally change 4 values. But even if this was an intentional change, outside of the fact that they never mentioned it, you still have the issue of now this is inherently less valuable in game. So I'm not too sure what happened with this one. Definitely a pretty bad thing to happen with this game, basically a bait and switch in a way, although it's just not getting as much attention because there's been so many other much larger issues to also come out in the same time frame. There's actually one report of somebody getting a refund around this. It's literally just one comment on Reddit though, so I don't know how true or not true this will end up being. Although outside of that, one of the other things that did get picked up and become a bit of a news story around Fallout First was the fact that these private servers weren't super private. I talked about it a bit in my initial video on the servers, but in effect, if you're on my friends list and I have a server up, even though it's technically a private server, you could just join. Like this dude on my friends list is playing on his private server and I could just join him. You could kick people off by blocking them or removing them as a friend, but there's no real way for me to just be like, okay, I'm gonna sit here alone and test some stuff, unless I was to manually go through and block every person on my friends list, which if you have any sizable friends list, that would take a while and just that's not a good solution. And more so than anything else, that's like one of those things where it's like, did no one test this? Did nobody at Bethesda like play on these servers and we're kind of like, hey, this is not ideal, we should do something about it? As the story got picked up, Bethesda actually gave some updates and a more official response to a GameSpot article saying that currently players on your friends list can join your private worlds without an invitation. We understand this is not what players expected for their private worlds, and we are looking to provide an option in an upcoming patch that will allow Fallout First members to restrict access to their servers more completely, preventing friends from joining without permission. Even if we just for a second ignore all of the other issues with Fallout First and the fact that this game has a subscription service now of all times, it still is not really fixing much. There's a ton of other problems with private servers, a ton of other things that they should do and they don't that still make them pretty unlucrative. Although I guess it is fair to say that the first thing you should do is actually give you the ability to make your private server private. That should probably be pretty high up on that list. Although something else I've touched on in the past that is going to be relevant again soon and also is kind of relevant now is modding Fallout 76. They've mentioned numerous times how mods are going to be something coming to this game, and in all likelihood that is still true. Once modding becomes the most lucrative or appealing monetization future for Fallout 76, then they'll probably implement that. I think right now there's a big barrier to entry. You're going to really kill the sales of stuff on your Atomic Shop, although with the way things are going right now, they're in the process of kind of just killing the game in general, so they have to fix that first. But considering modding requires a private server, at least that's how it's always been stated, and a private server requires Fallout First, that is a pretty massive barrier to entry. Unless there's some kind of workaround mod program, you have to imagine even if mod support came out tomorrow for this game, and actually especially if it came out tomorrow, many people would not want to do it for the money associated with it, and a lot of other modders probably wouldn't want to do it because they don't want to be stuck fixing a Bethesda mess. The negative PR, I think, will actually carry a really big effect among that group of individuals. For so long, we've had things like the unofficial patch that do a lot of what Bethesda probably should have been doing themselves. When we saw Fallout 76 release, it was abundantly obvious we weren't getting mods like that because the game stayed broken a lot longer than like Fallout 4, even though they both released with issues. Obviously Fallout 76 with a lot more issues, but I think whenever the inevitable mod support does get added, you will see this rise up. This conversation information again about how modding Fallout 76 is locked behind a paywall, unless by then Bethesda has done a full 180, although I find that very, very unlikely. And something else I just want to mention at the end of this video is to remember who the people you're interacting with are. The vast majority of the time when I report on news in this video or official comments by Bethesda, they're being delivered by the community managers. And I just want to remind everyone, those are people that are literally just delivering a message, although getting mad at Bethesda or even some of the Bethesda executives like Todd Howard, Pete Hines for things they've said, the direction they probably played a role in taking this game, and even further, I think a lot of emphasis should be placed on ZeniMax and their role in this. The community managers are kind of at the bottom of that figurative totem pole. They're not developing the game, they're not making design decisions, they're just telling you what other people are doing. I've seen some pretty toxic stuff sent their way, and I would just cut down on that. Direct things at the right people, directed at the larger company, the parent company, the board of directors. But of course also just being super toxic towards Bethesda employees in general is probably not the right route. That's probably just how they'll ignore you or write you off. Coming from a point of reason, being like, look, what you're doing here is bad for this brand and this is why I'm against it, is gonna send a much louder message, or even things like uninstalling Fallout 76, because that's something they'll see. They track those numbers. But either way, yes, that is the latest and greatest around Fallout First and some of the other larger issues to come with this update. I will continue to keep you guys up to date. I have a feeling this is not going to get repealed. They're not going to cancel the subscription service, but hey, maybe that'll happen. I'm very doubtful, and you could probably tell that. But either way, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you found this video informative at the very least, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.